begins where fear ends. Driven by one goal, to race on the edge of possible. Made to learn from the best. We try, fail, and try again, perfecting algorithms, enhancing performance, and achieving unparalleled precision. Fueled by the power of AI, surpassing our own limits to become faster, better, and safer. We steer as if our lives hang in the balance, because this time, coders are conquering the racetrack and taking the wheel of the future. And the future begins now. Join us on the 27th of April at the iconic Yas Marina Circuit. Explore the exciting world of the extreme autonomous racing and much more at the event of the season. This is the Abu Dhabi Autonomous Racing League, where AI drives to redefine the future.
Okay, so Autonomous Racing League. How is this going to help the world?
So I think the first thing is, people see autonomous driving really as a self-driving application within cars. What A2RL has done is basically build a platform for collaboration and competition. And Aspire and A2RL, Aspire is the organization in the United Arab Emirates, is really looking at fixing and addressing the big challenges of today. And the big challenges of today that we have in autonomy, mobility, and transport in general is there's too many deaths on the road and too many accidents. We've got 1 million people still dying on our roads, got 50 million accidents. And essentially, what we believe is that if you look at what a car is capable of doing versus the average driver, and we're not pretty good drivers, to be honest, right? AI can bridge that gap. And that's a critical, fundamental shift in the way we see autonomous robotics, the way we see transportation, and so forth. So to do that, and secondly, another challenge that we have is people are turning away from technology. So you have self-driving applications in the car, you have lane assist. We found that a lot of people are turning these things off because there's a general notion that people are not trusting of the technology. So what we did was to create a perfect test bed to bring team talent and technology on one platform in one race, where 8 teams come and compete for $2.25 million to conquer the racetrack, where the car is a fully self-driving, self-learning machine. So the car drives itself and humans watch.
Okay, so I just want to say, when we're talking about autonomous driving, just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Are we talking about, we're just going to let the cars drive us, or can we intervene? What exactly do we mean when we talk about autonomous driving here?
Well, I think where we are today is a process where each country, each company, regulator, has not understood what fundamental shift we're embarking on, right? So what we wanted to do was to create a platform of collaboration and to bring some of the best minds together, right? So what we've been able to do is to have 8 teams. Those teams from China to America to Europe, a team from Switzerland, 2 teams from Italy, 1 from Germany, and so forth. And they just bring their software. So the whole mechanical elements of the car, we take care of. They are just there to build the best algorithm. Who can build the best algorithm will win the race, essentially. In terms of technology, what we've done is create a perfect testbed environment that sensor manufacturers, LiDAR manufacturers, GPS, and so forth, they haven't been able to test their technology at the speeds that we're providing. And so if it's safe on the racetrack, surely that will have an impact on our roads, right? And today, I think a lot of technology is being put on our roads, and we'll touch upon that later, that hasn't really been tested to the same levels that it should be. So the key part for us is to bring people together, and then there is so many different areas, such as the Sustainable Development Goals, that this addresses as well.
Yeah. And so what kind of SDGs do you think this testing bed can help?
Well, I think the first thing in terms of innovation, as I said, we have sensor manufacturers never been above 80 kilometers an hour because they've been on a base airfield, and they've never really had the chance to work in collaboration with other players and some of the best minds around this, right? So competition in sports gives you that, right? And so that platform works really well. It's worked for motorsports. Hopefully work with us as well. And then on the 27th, we demonstrated that we, for the first time in the world, we had 4 cars racing each other, autonomous cars. We had many problems. The cars were not perfect. AI is very much not perfect. But that was a great experiment because we could see where the technology is, right? Today, the assumption is you just put that technology on our roads, right? So from a safety angle, there's a lot of implication. But in terms of the other part is that what we did was we not only had 8 teams on the track, we actually had on our normal application that teams from home could race against the cars. So we start having a physical versus digital reality where we could have 1,000 teams offline on the same race. So now you have mixed reality sports, physical versus digital, and we're actually able to find, because you could code that car in a simulator, so we can now start to find coders from around the world. So this has major implication in terms of education. The other thing that we did was we launched a STEM challenge where we had 18 schools from Abu Dhabi, 1 from the US. And we helped them code. They were coding mini cars, so 1/8 version of the same car, using more GPS data around a mini track. And what we found was that the kids were not so great at coding on a screen, but as soon as we gave them the car, then it was all about competition, right? So now their coding skills went through the roof. And in the end, we had, we had one university competing with one school of, 13-year-olds versus 21-year-olds. Because actually, once you strip it away and you make it accessible for all, most kids can actually understand very quickly, right? So it is just about simplifying it in a way that they could understand, and the car gave them that understanding.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Of course, cars bringing that excitement to technology for sure, to get young children and young people more involved. So I want to open the floor up to questions. I'm sure you have many. But before that, I just want to ask you a little bit about the challenges, because, when it comes to motorsports like this, it's expensive. So getting that technology into the hands of everyone, how, is that feasible?
So I think that's a great question. I think the first thing is that we have a 24/7 simulator running. Actually, each team has their own simulator running. They are perfecting the perfect lap. So we know what a perfect lap would look like. So we did something that was not done before either, which was we did an AI versus human race. So we had Danny Kvyat, former F1 driver, compete with our AI car. Right, so today, the human driver is at 1:47 seconds, and we were 6 months out, 3 minutes a lap, and within the final 6 weeks, we broke that down to 10 seconds of the human car. So what we thought was this is going to take a couple of years for us to catch up, that the human sets the benchmark and the AI will catch up slowly. We now think within 6 months to a year, hopefully next year we'll be here and I could tell you the results, but we think that within 6 months we'll catch up. So we had it in chess, we had it in Go, and now we're having it in motorsport. that's the power of AI, right? So, harnessing that power is really important. Creating the perfect test bed is really important. Bringing the right people and talent around the world, and it's really an open platform. We're really looking for people from around the world. And that's really critical to make this a success, really.
Yeah, and so how can people get involved around the world?
Well, I think there's a few things. I think the first thing is we want to lower the barriers to entry. So motorsport is an expensive game, right? So every crash is costly. So one element was the simulation that we launched. The other part, and so what we will do now is to open that up for coders around the world. You could be in, where's my friend from Colombia? She's here around somewhere, I'm sure. You could be from a school in Colombia or India or Japan or wherever, and you could code a car and become a race car driver, right? You may not fit the part. You may not be physically able to get into a car, right? But we're opening that up. You can dream about being a race car driver now through AI, right? You need coding skills, of course. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is what we're doing is we're launching autonomous drone racing. So autonomous drone racing is not the same cost levels attached to the car. The entry is really much about democratizing A2RL to open it up to universities and schools from around the world, where now you can continuously crash a drone, rebuild, and put it back on fly again. So we're launching that with Drones Champions League, who are the #1 within drone racing. And so we will hopefully have another experiment, which will be the world's best drone pilots versus AI.
Okay, sounds fascinating. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, a microphone will come to you.
Hi, thank you. Really, really brilliant talk. My question's more on how you see the future of the sport sort of evolving, because, you know, when you see like Lewis Hamilton win a race, right, it's him on the podium, it's not the car, right? So do you think that in the future of sports, it's because for me, right, when you look at sports like this, it's about humans making decisions under lots of pressure, right? And then you're looking at the team behind you that makes the vehicle. Do you think that taking the human out of the sport will take something away from the spirit of it, or are we creating something new entirely?
Well, I think the first thing is all sports are being disrupted. Like, so when I set this up, I put this together with my colleagues. What we realize is if you take cricket, you know, it was a 5-day game, became a day game, now comes a 3-hour game, right? You take tennis, you take everything. So what's happening in sports is that our children are born with an iPad in their hand. So they have an 8-second attention span. So every sport in the world is being disrupted. So we could be the disruption within motorsport, but we don't talk about a future whereby we replace drivers. No, there will always be a role or a sport or the sports will be around human interaction. What we're saying, there could be mixed reality between or digital and humans, what we've shown that can be done. But then there will be also an opportunity now for coders to be the sports people, right? There is a human behind the code, and that journey has to be told well, right? There's a lot of people who are disenfranchised by sport. You know, they've lost interest in sport. Their attention has gone in a certain direction. A lot of coders don't feel they're part of sports, really. We're giving them a platform, really, and then through that also creating great innovation. So what I see is we started off as a scientific experiment through the vehicle of sport. Now I see us becoming a sport where the byproduct is science. And so it's a bit of a shift.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Any other questions? Okay, I want to ask a quick question on hacking, because we've seen Teslas being hacked. So how do you implement the security?
So I think putting hacking is one element. I mean, there's multiple elements to this. I mean, the first is, what is the cost of not doing this, right? The cost of not doing this is essentially we are always working on the impact of accidents, on issues and so forth, right? So you have airbags and you have other technologies around that. What we're trying to do is prevent accidents, right? Have an ability to have better, safer roads, right? And so that has a huge impact. I think the second thing around that, which is, as I touched upon, the regulator, a lot of technology is going out there which is untested. So, I rented a car. I'm a Tesla driver, but I rented another electronic car. Everything was great for 4 days. Final traffic light I approach, and 50 meters before the traffic light, it hits the emergency brake, right? Because it's got confused between the traffic light and the speed camera, right? So essentially, and the kids went flying, right? So there is a lot of work to be done. What is needed is to have that perfect test bed. So again, A2RL works as that perfect test bed for people to test their technology before it hits our roads. And unfortunately, one of the main things that was discussed on the Governance Day is that regulation is well behind where we are. So our sport is essentially a test bed to allow all the different participants and stakeholders to come together and think about it. And that's why AI for Good is so important, right? Because it is bringing that collaboration of people. We are working now with the AI for Good and ITU of how do we bring everyone to a singular table to discuss these elements. Because I think there's a future whereby any technology has to be tested independent simulation. So regulation today is testing the mechanical elements of the car and then putting the car out. It's actually, if you have an electronic car, you'll see. I mean, our cars are petrol, but that's a different matter. But the cars that go on, are mainly going on our roads, and there's tens of Chinese car manufacturers, right? Every week there's a new car manufacturer. But no one is testing the software on an independent simulation. And so that's why I think it's critical that we address it from multiple angles.
Yeah, well, there you have it. That is how racing cars could potentially save lives. Please give a round of applause.
Okay. One more video.
Got one more video.
A2RL Abu Dhabi Autonomous Racing League 2024. Racing League 2024.